Hello, and welcome to Leadership Beyond Burnout. I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson, and I'm so glad you decided to spend a little time with me today. For those of you who are frequent guests, welcome back. And for those of you who are just joining us today, I'm glad that you're here. Today, we are going to talk about navigating stress within and spotting and supporting interpersonal struggles in teams. Now, this is Stress Awareness Month if you're joining us live, and if not, this applies at all times, not just during Stress Awareness Month. So, have you ever noticed really that the person who's most hardest on you is not your colleagues, it's not your friends, it's not your family, it's actually you? I know I can be my own worst critic, and we do it so frequently. Many of us trick ourselves into thinking that this is what makes us do so well. This is what helps us to be able to succeed and propel and prepare well. But instead of building us up, we're actually tearing ourselves down slowly. And I thought this was such an important topic, and I got a lot of notes because I didn't want to go off on a tangent. So, what is interpersonal stress? Because we often hear of interpersonal stress. So, interpersonal stress, INTER, personal stress, that's stress between people, between different relationships. So, family, friends, coworkers. So, it's two or more people, and there's some stress because of that relationship and within the relationship. When we're discussing intrapersonal stress, INTRA, that intrapersonal stress, that's the stress within. That's when we have generated thoughts, feelings, emotions, our self-talk, our beliefs that is internal within us that's creating our feelings of distress. It's what we think about ourselves. And so we can be our worst mean girl or mean guy. You know, it's that voice sitting on your shoulder telling you that you're not good enough and you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And it can definitely impact individual well-being and team dynamics. So I thought it was really important that we have managers who are able and capable, any of those leaders, so that they can begin to spot it in their teams before it gets to a level that it impacts the whole team. Because can you imagine if you had 5 or 6 people on a team who are all dealing with interpersonal stress, interpersonal stress, the stress of the company, the stress of the nation? That's a whole lot of stress that we're taking on. So how do you begin to spot that? So some of the observable things that you can identify, it could be the quality of work or their productivity. It could go way down. That's some of the beginning signs of some interpersonal stress. Withdrawal from team interactions. They could begin to feel like they're not good enough or they don't have anything to contribute that's of value. So they pull back. Someone could exhibit a lot more irritability, a lot more mood swings. Those are some observable things that you can really spot that's happening within the team and your teammates. Some subtle clues could be missed deadlines, right? Or increased absenteeism. They're, when something's about to come up, all of a sudden they're sick or they forgot about a play or they need to take care of something with a family member. Not that that's always true, but it could be possible. So it's something to just watch out for and to keep yourself apprised of. You could have someone who is really hesitant or reluctant to take risks or to do anything different or to deviate. They need to adhere strictly to protocols, policies, and procedures. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying that someone should deviate necessarily from protocols, policies, and procedures, but there are times on any team in any organization when policies, procedures, and protocols don't address the situation that's at hand, whether it's with a customer, a product, or a service, that we sometimes have to be innovative and creative. And if you see someone who, I guess the new term is crashing out, who where they just feel completely lost and they experience a great deal of distress when they have to do some creative thinking, that could be a real sign of that. There could be a reluctance to begin to make decisions or take any risks. Some other nonverbal cues could be their body language or their tone of voice. Now, they could begin to talk really softly or not participate at all because they lack that confidence. And some people may even just reiterate what someone else says, and you'll have this really strong support of what someone else says, whether they believe in it or not. So I'm really curious, and please put it in the chat, what signs that you tend to notice that are either observable or just some subtle cues in your team or possibly even yourself that would indicate, oh, I'm experiencing some type of internal stress. So when they're experiencing that, there's a couple of things that can be done. Definitely ensure that you refer them to all the resources that your company has. But you can begin meetings with some simple exercises, right? Something as simple as box breathing. Now, you've probably heard of this before. I'm not sure if you've demonstrated it, if it's ever been demonstrated, but I'm going to do that right now. Now, when you do box breathing, it's simply a matter of counting four beats when you take your breath in, 4 beats when you take it out. So you go in kind of a box: 4 in, 4 out, blowing out, 4 taking in, and 4 out. You just go in a box. And when you take these breaths, you want to ensure that you are actually breathing in your diaphragm, right here where your stomach is, and not breathing into your chest. Because when you breathe just into your chest, what can happen is you can actually hyperventilate and possibly just lose some oxygen to your brain. You can breathe too quickly. But when you're breathing deeply into your diaphragm, that becomes a cleansing breath. So let's take an example of that. So we'll do 4 breaths in. So that was one instance of that. So I did one revolution of the 4 breaths in and 4 breaths out. Now, ideally, you would do that at least 4 times. So try it. You might find that it's really helpful, and your team might like it as well. And some of the benefits of that, it'll help reduce some cortisol. Your mind will be calm. It'll get down some of that chatter. You remember we talked about that, those thoughts, beliefs, and self-talk that happens with intrapersonal stress. And it increases your focus because you're stopping everything that's going on to be able to focus. So try to recognize those signs of intrapersonal stress early. And if you're wondering what this might look like, one example could be you have a high achieving professional, right, who gets so many accolades. However, they feel as if despite all of those accolades, they feel like an imposter. They feel as if they really didn't do too much. They didn't do anything more than the average person would do. In a personal way that we can think about it at home, it could be a parent who judges themselves harshly against unrealistic standards. Can't tell you how many moms and dads I've seen who have tried to judge themselves against the TV standard of what should happen. I remember very, very early on when my son was little. So now he's in his 20s, 21, about to be 22. I can't believe it. But I was dropping him and his sister off at daycare. And there was this mom, and she came and she had on high heels and full makeup, just looking extremely cute and fit. And I was going, just judging myself so harshly about that I should, do better. Now, keep in mind, at the time, I am working full time, running a business, being a mom. My husband was working out of town, so my ability to get glam was somewhat limited. So I needed to realize at that time that that's an unrealistic standard for me in the life that I was leading. And I needed to retrain my brain to think differently about the situation and take into context the holistic outlook of my life and how things were working. And it just wasn't, that wouldn't be positive for myself or my children to take away time for something. And most of the time when you all see me, I'm all made up, but most of the time I am plain Jane with no makeup on at all. um, let's talk more about some of the coping strategies that a team can begin to do to help them to be able to manage some of this interpersonal stress. So one of the things that I love is creating coping cards. So now that's a technique within cognitive behavioral thought processes, cognitive behavioral therapy, where you rewrite some of the internal messages that you're saying to yourself. And let me think of a good example. So if you are telling yourself that you're not smart enough to do this project, it is just too difficult, you'll never succeed, you're terrible. Uh, so you can take just a sticky, or you can take a 3x5 card and you write a competing thought on there. Now, when you write the competing thought, you want to make sure that it's a thought that you can actually believe. So if I put on that piece of paper, that 3x5 card, or I put on that sticky note that, oh, I'm a genius and I'm the smartest person in the world and I never make mistakes, I don't believe that. I do not believe that at all. So that would not be an effective coping card. That would be a waste of paper and a waste of time. But what I might put on there is something to the effect of, when you focus and engage in projects, you tend to put your best foot forward. You did this project well before. There's no reason that you can't replicate that. Now, those are a lot of words, and I tend to be wordy sometimes. But if you can put something believable on there to help you get out of your head and quit creating this unnecessary stress, unnecessary drama, it will allow you to do better, get out of your amygdala, that fight, flight, or freeze, and really focus and create the really great work that you normally do. Okay. So another thing that's called is reframing that inner dialogue so that it's less harsh, it's kinder, and it's constructive. Because when we have this negative self-talk, it is destructive. And what does destruction do? It tears down. So we are literally in the process of tearing down ourselves. And if a manager can catch someone doing that, you can almost see a person's thoughts. You can see it in their body language when they're not feeling confident. A kind word, or even a simple reminder, put in a sticky note to say, hey, I really appreciate that you do this. That kind word can sometimes make all the difference in a team. It can give someone that confidence that they're slowly lacking because they're tearing themselves down. Another example of some negative self-talk could be, I'm failing everything. And you could change that to something quite simply as like, I'm learning, and I'm improving daily. And if you make the effort to improve daily, what we focus on and what we measure, that tends to get an improvement. But when we ignore things and we put them away and we try not to think about them and say, okay, I'm just going to push through it. I know I'm calling myself all these names, but I'm just going to just put my head down and do what I need to do. Incrementally, it's highly unlikely that you're going to do better, that you're going to feel better, that whether or not your team can even elevate. So you helping that one person also elevates the team and helps them to be able to innovate more. Another thing that a manager can do is ensuring that they set realistic expectations for their team. When we create these arbitrary deadlines or these rapid turnarounds, when it's unnecessary, that there is no real urgency other than the ones that we create because we want to make sure that it's on time and we can turn it in on time. I know I've definitely known people where there's a deadline at the end of the month, but then they tell their team that the deadline is in the middle of the month, and they only have a week turnaround. That's some unnecessary stress because there's a whole 2-3 other weeks that they have to complete that project. So allowing them the time and space and giving them real information will help them to be able to reduce some of that intrapersonal stress that they're experiencing and the external pressure that you're giving them. Done is always better than perfect. There was always a saying with a PhD, make it PhD done, not perfect. Okay. Having mindful check-ins, right? So some brief daily reflections and affirmations to help kind of decenter those negative thoughts can mean the world to someone. Okay. That's when you decide to consciously shift to positivity. So you can create little reminders on your phone, or you can put it in the team calendar, just one positive thought so that it pops up for them. And it could be possibly when they need it the most. Another strategy that I want to give you to assist you with your team is having some mindful check-ins. And so these are when you have these brief daily reflections that identify negative thoughts and you consciously shift it to positivity. All right. So when you think about these 4 strategies that I mentioned, which do you think would speak to your team the most? Which would give them the most life? Which would give you the opportunity to support them, as well as to calm down some of your own interpersonal stress? So think about that. You don't have to implement all of these strategies, but choose one. Choose one and you'll be surprised at the difference that it would actually make. So as just a reminder, the sooner you recognize interpersonal stress on your team, in yourself, the earlier it is, the better. Because then you can actually deal with it, address it, and remove it. Okay. Begin to implement some simple strategies consistently. So if it feels overwhelming to try and implement 2 or 3 strategies, just do one. Do one, and until that becomes a habit, maybe the next 90 to 120 days, 180 days, the team will begin to expect it and they'll begin to thrive and cherish that. Okay. Begin to commit to changing your own inner dialogue, because the more that you can do as a leader in changing your inner dialogue, the more equipped that you will be able to help shift some of the inner dialogue of your team to help them to understand the processes that you've used to shift some of that. So if you are ready to conquer that inner critic for your team, for yourself, and thrive, please don't hesitate to connect with me on all of my socials and DM me, and we can have a strategy call to talk about your team's next step, the next moves to be able to help you to thrive and lead beyond burnout. Until next time, I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson. You can see me here every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time. Until next time.